Good morning students, welcome to today's business studies class. Let us discuss on a 6th chapter 8 marks question, that is formation of a company. Explain the functions of promoters in the promotion stage of a company. They have asked straightly explain the functions of a promoter. In this case you can just list out the functions of the promoters and start explaining them. First point, identification of business opportunity. The first and the foremost activity of a promoter is to identify the business opportunity. The opportunity may be in respect of producing a new product or services or making some product available through a different channel. Second point, feasibility studies. It may not be feasible or profitable to convert all identified business opportunities into the real projects. So we have to analyze and study various feasibility studies. They are broadly classified into three. First one, it is technical feasibility. Second one, financial feasibility. Third one, economic feasibility. Let us see the first one. Technical feasibility. Sometimes an idea may be good, but technically not possible to execute it. It may be so because the required raw material or technology it is not easily available. Second one, financial feasibility. Every business activity requires finance. The promoter have to estimate the funds required for the identified business opportunity. Third one, economic feasibility. Sometimes it so happens that the project is technically good, financially good, but the profit what they are going to get it is not good. So they the decision comes to the promoter where if it is possible or if he gives in a positive motto only, further it can move forward. Otherwise here itself the company registration will be come into an end. Let us see the third point, name approval. After studying the detailed feasibility about each and everything, the promoter has to, the person joining to form a company will give the names. That name should not have been the existing name of any other company. So in that case they will allow them to select three names, out of that one will be approved. And the fourth point, it is fixing up signatories to the memorandum of association. The promoters have to decide about the member who will be signing the memorandum of the association of the proposed company. Usually the people signing the memorandum of association also that first director of the company they will be set. And the fifth very important point, appointment of professionals. In order to start up a company we need some professionals also which they will give us idea and that will bring the good impact on the formation of a company. Certain professionals such as bankers, auditors, etc. are appointed by the promoters to assign them in the preparation of the documents which is required to the registration of the company. Last point, the function of a promoter is preparation of necessary document. As a promoter they have also have to prepare the necessary document for the registration of the company and have to submit it, and that documents are memorandum of association and article of association. Let's move to second question. Explain the following stages in the formation of a company. Usually the formation of a company there are three stages. First stage it is promotion stage, second stage it is incorporation stage, third stage it is capital subscription stage. If it is a public limited company, it will have these three stages what I have told. Promotion stage, incorporation stage, capital subscription stage. If it is a private limited, they will have only two stages, that is your promotion stage and your incorporation stage. Here they have asked you to explain the following stages in the promotion of a company. So let's explain a first point, promotion stage. Promotion is the first stage in the formation of a company. It involves convincing a business idea and taking an initial to form a company so that practical shape can be given to that business opportunity. In the promotion stage, as we have seen the functions of the promoter, same activities will be performed in the promotion stage. Each and every activity has been performed. Then they will see the preparation of the necessary document which all has to taken place, and then they will move on to the incorporation stage. After the completing promotion formalities, the promoter make an application for the incorporation of a company. Incorporation in the sense to start up a company. The application is to be filled with the register of a companies of the state within which they have planned to establish that register office of the company. After each and every idea plan, everything has been done, the documents, memorandum of association, article of association, everything has to be prepared, in which state they are going to establish that company, that register office they have to see and to be get sealed and sealed and everything. Further that they will come to an conclusion that to be satisfied with that documents are in order and that all the statutory requirement regarding the registration has been compiled with. When the register is satisfied about the completion of the formalities for the registration, a certificate of incorporation is issued to the company, which signifies the birth of the company. The certificate of incorporation may be therefore be called the birth certificate of the company. After receiving that birth certificate of the company, if it is a private limited, they can commence the business, they can start it. If it is a public sector company, they have to move for the next stage, that is a capital subscription stage. Let's see the next question. Move on to the next question. What is capital subscription in the formation of a company? Explain the steps involved in it. Let's see the meaning of capital subscription. A public company can raise the required funds from the public by means of issue of securities, that is your shares and debentures. For doing the same, it has to issue a prospectus, which is an invitation to the public to subscribe to the capital of the company and undergo. The following are the steps required for raising the funds from the public. We have for this capital subscription also, we have various steps which we have to get followed to subscribe those shares. Under that, the first step, it is SEBI approval. Let us know what is that SEBI. Securities and Exchange Board of India. Whatever it may be, when you are going to raise a fund from a general public, the government will not leave you as of how. So this SEBI, which is the which is the regulatory authority in our country, has issued the guidelines for the disclosure of information and investor protection. The person who are going to invest in your company, for them this is one safeguard that SEBI will provide for them. If SEBI approval is there, the people will get one strong belief that this is a good company. If we invest, they will give us whatever whether it is a dividend or the interest on which we have received. First and foremost, we have to get the approval from the SEBI, that providing all the documents of a company. And second one, filling of the prospectus. We have to, a copy of prospector or the statement of the prospector is filled with the register of a company. A prospector has to be given. In simple word, we can define the prospector is, a prospector is any document described or issued as a prospector, which can be as a notice or circular or advertisement also. And the third point, it is appointment of banker, broker and underwriters also is very necessary, because capital subscription, in the sense you are going to issue the shares or something, so the people may buy the share not only by paying it cash to you, they may do online transaction also. The person buying the shares may be in some other countries or in a particular country, so the banker also is very much needed. So any fund transfer to a particular bank, that will automatically transfer that fund to your same account. The brokers are the person who will work under you, who will make the other person to purchase the share, and we have to pay a certain percentage of commission to them. And the next, it is of underwriters. Underwriters, in the sense, on behalf of us, we are going to appoint 1, 2, 3 underwriters. We will give them certain percentage. They will take it off our shares. In that ratios, if that general public are not going to subscribe that percentage of shares, the underwriters will going to take up such shares. They are called as underwriters. So these 3 persons are very important in the capital subscription, which will help for the formation of a company easily to raise a fund from a general public. And fourth one, it is minimum subscription. A company cannot proceed with allotment of share before obtaining the minimum subscription as per the SEBI guidelines. Usually this as we will be the owner of a company, we may give for a SEBI that I need a 10 or 20 crore of funds which I want to raise from a general public or something. They will see each and everything. Out of that, only a 90% can be issued, and the other 10% will be on the remaining balance. They will see each and everything. The authorized capital are for minimum subscription only they will give. By keeping that minimum subscription only, you can raise for incorporation of your company at a first time out of that 50%, and the next you can raise the remaining shares. And the fifth point, it is application to stock exchange. Because you are going to issue the shares and debentures, an application is to be made to at least one stock exchange for the permission to deal its shares and debentures in that particular stock exchange. Okay, and the last sixth point, it is allotment of shares. After you have got a SEBI approval, you have filled the prospectus, and you have appointed the bankers, brokers, underwriters, and how much you have known that minimum subscription is there. Next, you have given application to the stock exchange also. Then after that, you can come to allotment of share. In case the number of shares allotted is less than the number of applied for, there no shares are allotted to the applicant. The excess application money, if any, to be returned or adjusted towards the allotment money due from them. Allotment letter as issued to the successful allotters. Return of allotment signed by the director, that is a person who signed that the that memorandum of association, who is the director of your company, that person will see on to that. This covers the steps which is involved in raising the capital subscription from a general public. This covers a 8 marks question on your 6th module. Let us move on to the 7th chapter. 7th chapter, internal trade. Who is wholesaler? Explain the service of wholesaler to manufacturer. Clearly the question is, who is a wholesaler? So you have to write the meaning of the wholesaler, then only explain the service to the wholesaler to manufacturer. person who undertakes to buying or selling of goods and services in large quantities for the purpose of resale or intermediary use are called wholesalers. A wholesaler is a person, in simple, the person who is going to purchase the goods or services in a bulk quantity, neither to resale or immediately to use by themselves. We will see what and all the service is provided by the wholesaler. As a wholesaler, what he is going to provide to the manufacturer. The first one, it is of facilitating large scale production. As a wholesaler, from the manufacturer is a person who will give them that how much large scale production activity they have to do. They have to do in order, that will be the one of the main services which has been provided by the wholesaler to the manufacturer. The wholesaler will have many retailers under them, maybe 10 retailers or somebody. They will give them like how many orders they'll be taking. So he'll collect all that information and he will pass on to the manufacturer. That ultimately helps the manufacturer to facilitating large scale of production, like how much he can produce so that it will be useful for the activity. Second point, bearing the risk. As a wholesaler, he will bear all the risk in storing of the he would have purchased that goods from a manufacturer in a bulk quantity. He would have been storing that, he had neither have to deliver to the retailer. He is a middleman between the manufacturer and the retailer, so he'll be bearing all sort of risk. Even from there he will be purchasing and coming, it will be in his warehouse or something. After that only he is going to pass on to the retailer. Maybe the prices may go high or come down, it may increase or decrease. He will bear each and every types of risk. And the third one, it is of financial assistance. As he is the first person who is going to purchase from the manufacturer, so the manufacturer may invest them that he has to make a cash payment only. He have to pay the money and take the goods, because by keeping that money only a manufacturer can manufacture a product, so he has to do it. And the fourth point, it is expert advice. Being a middleman between the manufacturer and the wholesaler, retailer, the manufacturer provides the expert advice to the wholesaler provides the expert advice to the manufacturers, that you can provide so much of product, these products are moving very nicely, or when it is compared to other product, that is very good because the taste is there, quantity is more, because they are moving to that product. He will have a various knowledge and information, because the wholesaler will be purchasing from different manufacturer, so he will collect all the information. Even the person who are purchasing, if it is any default, something is there, even that information he can give it, pass on to the manufacturer. And the fifth point, it is facilitating production continuity. This wholesaler only is going to make and give an information idea or the plan which will help the manufacturer to whether to have a continuous production or something. They are not going to produce and stop the activity. They'll be having a continuous production activity, which the wholesaler will make them like how much they want to purchase or something. Based on that, by estimation, the manufacturer will have a facilitating production continuity. Last one, it is of storage. The service of wholesaler to manufacturer what they produce, in the sense they will store the goods even after the production activity has been done. In order, they'll be knowing that there are various other wholesaler who's going to purchase goods from them ultimately. Next question, what is retail trader? Explain the services of retailer to consumer. Let's see the meaning of retail trader. A retailer is a business enterprises that is engaged in the sale of goods and services directly to the ultimate consumers. You have seen in the chain of production of a particular product or something, there will be a four person. First one will be the manufacturer, second one will be the wholesaler, and third one will be the retailer, and fourth one it will come ultimate consumers. So here the retailer comes as a third party, so he also will be the middleman between the wholesaler and the ultimate consumers. Okay, we will see what and all the services is provided by the retailer to the consumers. First one, regular availability to products. Has a retailer in a shop, he will be having regularly the goods which he has to provide to the end consumers, because he will be purchasing from the wholesaler. And second one, new products information. Before first after it comes to the market, first it will come to the retail shops only, small petty shops. So they will be having a new product information, and that is a person who is going to do the promotion activity to the existing new products. Third one, convenience in buying. All people will be not having a easy access to the market, the supermarket or departmental stores or town, the store. These retail shops will be available in the rural areas also, within the locality. Some street or local places also you will find a retail shop. So such shop, it is very convenience in buying to the customers, because they'll be 24 hours available. Even at night times, if they go and ask that particular shop, if it is any emergency, they will provide to them. It will be like the working hour of the shop will be like morning 6 to night till 10, but the market shops, it will be of wholesalers are 10:30 or 11 to night 8 o'clock. So it provides convenience in buying. And fourth one, provide credit facilities. Usually these retail shops provide credit facility to the consumers. And the fifth one, it is wide selection. Wide selection in the sense, in the retail shop you will be have a plenty of products, alternative products also will be there, so that it provides a wide selection to the customer to purchase a particular product. And the sixth one, it is after sale services. Even after producing a particular products also, they will provide a services. If it is of a electronic gadgets or something, any installation is required, or after sales any repair is there, they will provide after sales services also. Let's move on to the next question. Explain the different types of fixed shop small retailers. Let's see what are the different types of fixed retail shops. First one, it is of your general stores. General stores are usually which has been a very small in size, and which will be having a very large, which will be useful for the people, which will be very convenient to the purchase from the goods from the general stores. We can define the general stores are most commonly found in local markets and residential areas. As a name indicates, these shop carries stock of variety of products required to safety also. Day-to-day needs of consumer goods will be available. And second one, it is of your specialty shops. These specialty shops are generally located in the central place where large number of customers are available. And example, you can see lines of products like gifts, toys, school uniform, college books of the consumer electronic goods will be available. And third one, it is of your street stall holders. These small vendors are commonly found at street crossing or other places where flow of traffic is heavy. And last one, it is of your second hand goods shop. Usually all of us know this second hand goods shop, where they'll be selling the goods which has been used and given at a very lower price, like your clothes, automobiles, furniture, other household goods will be sold, and it will be located at a street crossing or in a big busy streets in the form of a stall having very little structure. Okay, let's move on to the other question. Explain any 4 merits and 4 limitation of departmental store. Usually whenever they ask us to explain any 4 limitation of departmental store, you have to just list it out the functions of a departmental store, and let us see mainly what is a departmental store meaning. A departmental store is a large establishment offering a wide variety of products classified into the well-defined departments aimed at satisfying particularly very customized needs under a single roof. You would have seen various departments which they provide under a single roof which will be provided. Let's see the merits. Attract large number of customers, because under a one roof various products are available, so large number of customers are attracted towards the shop. And second one, it is of buying in by convenience in buying. Convenience in the buying in the sense the departmental store will be located at the central place of the organization. At a center city it will be located, so there will be a convenience in buying. The rural people also can buy, even the urban people also can purchase a particular product. Attractive services. Attractive services in the sense the service which and all they provide. They will provide delivery or doorstep delivery. If you just call to your departmental store and place an order of a particular provision of a month or something, they will provide it at your attractive services in the sense that is a one type of service which they provided to you. And the fourth one, it is economy of large scale of operation. It is not only a small shop only with few items it is has been located. It is a very large establishment where various variety of products with different your garments, your provisions, your jewelry shops, each and everything will be available. Entering into a one small departmental store, you can purchase various things to your home products. And the last one, it is of promotion of sales. For the establishment of this only, they are investing a large scale of operation. Why not for the promotion activity? They may do that. In turn will give them the sales of the particular organization. Limitation, lack of personal attention, because it is a departmental store, so we may not have a the person cannot pay attention on each and every person that visits a departmental store. Second one, high operating cost. Because of it is has been a large scale operation, high operating cost will be there on the overheads, because they have to pay the huge salaries to the employees who work under there. High possibility of losses, in case if they would have purchased more goods from other in wholesalers, some large quantity or something, if that becomes outdated, or if that comes down, any new other products has been come, that will become a possibility of losses to that departmental store. Inconvenience in location, because it has been located at a center place of the city, so it will be accessible to the urban people only. Rural people cannot purchase. If they want to purchase 1 kg of wheat at a night times to make a dinner of chapati or something, to purchase that particular, whether they are going to visit that departmental store, no, within the retail shop itself they will purchase. So it is inconvenience in location. The last question of this section is explain the role of commerce and industry association in the promotion of internal trade. We have various role the commerce and industry has been taken to promote this internal trade. Internal trade in the sense buying and selling of goods and services within the boundaries of the countries. Under that, the first step, it is the first point, it is interstate movement of goods. The Chamber of Commerce and Industry helps in many activities concerning interstate movement of goods, which includes registration of vehicles, surface transport policies, construction of highways and roads. And second point, it is octroi and other local levies. Local levies in the sense if it is entering a particular municipal or something, we have to pay taxes on that. And third one, it is harmonization of sales tax structure and value added taxes. We have to pay taxes on the goods which we are manufacturing on the different stages also. And the fourth one, it is marketing of agro products and related issues. The agro products which they are going to manufacture in the internal trade, on that also they should have a related issues that will be undertaken by this commerce and industry. And the fifth one, it is of weights and measures and prevention of duplication of brands. If there is any duplication of brands in a particular manufacturing of our goods, that will be undertaken. They will check the weights and the measures also. If there is any wrong, if they have been detected, that they will take a step further to identify it. And the sixth one, it is of your excise duty. Central excise is a chief source of a government revenue levied across the state by the central government. This is a tax which has been levied, which has to be collected. It is a one of the revenue which they are going to get. So they will check it each and everything. And seventh one, it is promoting sound infrastructure, mainly for the internal trade. Buying and selling of goods and services within the country, within the boundary, there should be a good infrastructures like your road, electricity and the railways. So they will see whether they by promoting that infrastructure, which will give a good impact on the internal trade, which will ultimately uplift the life of the people who are concerned with that internal trade. Last one, it is of the labor legislation. The Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the government are consistently interacting on the issues like labor laws within the government, so that remove to each and every activity. These are the following points which has been taken into consideration by the Commerce and Industry Association in the promotion of the internal trade. This completes the 8 marks question on 7th chapter. Thank you students for watching.